And now for our feature presentation.
He'll be fine on the mountain.
JB and Darren on the JB and Goldwater Show.
Line drive right field, base hit. South Carolina wins the College World Series. Watson, touchdown. Hooker, Renfro. Got him, and it's all over. Coastal Carolina rules the roost. They win the championship. And South Carolina has won the national championship.
The Senegal baseball team has done it again, but this time the Bulldogs beat one of the top teams in the country. They are giant killers. Get the ball to Bennett. He does.
Gamecocks are in the Final Four.
All right, greetings and a good Tuesday afternoon, and welcome aboard the JB and Goldwater Show, live, loud, and online, and very proudly presented by Motley Rice. Causes not just cases, MotleyRice.com, driven by Stokes Volkswagen, StokesVW.com. Make sure you get your end-of-year deal now at Stokes Volkswagen, the home of the Atlas. My wife drives one. Maybe your wife or you will as well. We hope you'll drive along with us for the next couple of hours. You can find us on the JB and Goldwater app, and also all of our platforms available at jbandgoldwatershow.com. 843-321-8893 is our text line. You can shoot us a note there or via Facebook, YouTube, wherever, and you can be part of our Share Healthcare chat line. Share Healthcare is where you can take care of your family at affordable rates, more affordable, more options, user-friendly. ShareHealthcare.com. If you are looking for something to help keep your family safe in a crazy time out there when it comes to healthcare, just go to the website, ShareHealthcare.com. On social media, at JB and Goldwater, individually at Sports Media JB, and at Darren Goldwater. Coming up here, we've got Keith Allsep at 12:30 today, the host of the Locked on the Gamecocks podcast. He'll give us his hoops preview. Tonight, the Gamecock women and men take the floor for the first official time in the regular season in 21-22. Don's ladies will play at 5 o'clock this afternoon against NC State and Raleigh. That is a top 5 matchup, and if you haven't heard, it is on national television, ESPN. It will precede the State Farm Champions Classic, which will play tonight, so it's a great night of basketball. The men will play at 7. You can listen to that on the Gamecock IMG Sports Network. Hopefully you've got the app if you're not in the Columbia area, and you can pull up Derek Scott, as he calls it tonight, USC Upstate in South Carolina. Keith is also, of course, going to talk about Carolina football. The Gamecocks still high off of a huge win over the Florida Gators this weekend, and they head to Columbia, Missouri to battle for the Mayor's Cup, trying to bring that back to Columbia. So we'll get Keith's look back and look ahead there with Carolina football. We do have Mike Morgan. We had to push him to the 1 o'clock hour, so around 1:20 today, Mike will pop in with ESPN, the SEC Network, and apparently everything else. He has a busy, busy week. He's calling 2 basketball games this week and another NFL football game. So we'll let Mike tell you about that here in just a little while. We never got to some of the high school stuff yesterday, so we're going to try to dabble in it. Certainly going to get into the college football playoff scenarios because they're going to release another set of rankings. And did I miss something? Didn't the Braves win the World Series? And somehow Major League Baseball announced 3 National League managers as finals for Manager of the Year, and Brian Snitker, whose team was under 500 at the All-Star break, isn't one of them? Holy moly.
He shouldn't win the award anyway. Whether he's a finalist, he shouldn't win the award.
Who should win it?
Oh, it's absolutely going to Kapler in San Francisco. It's a regular season award. It's not a postseason award. So it's Kapler's. So you could flip-flop Schilt and him, even though Schilt's the
Did Schilt get fired?
Yes, but it wasn't because of success on the field. It's because of other stuff. He could be in there. Like, I get the maybe he should be included, but he shouldn't win. It's a regular season award. He shouldn't win. Braves fans up in arms in this are just looking for something to complain about. You won the World Series. It doesn't mean he's the manager of the year.
That's ridiculous. He absolutely should be one of the 2 finalists, not even the 3 finalists for this job. For this award. This guy, everything that he went through this year, Darren, as a man, I don't care what Milwaukee did. The Braves did more this year, had all those hurdles to clear. Everybody wrote them off, and they win the East, and then they go on and win the World Series. It's remarkable. I know it's a regular season award. I understand all that, but it's ridiculous.
You could put him in with the other 2, but it's Kapler. I mean, the Giants weren't expected to do anything, and they won the NOS. It's Kapler.
I'll concede that. I have no problem conceding that, but I personally, there's no way he should not be one of the 3 finalists. That is incredible. It's a discredit. And what about Cora in Boston? The Red Sox were picked last in the division. He's left off the table too. I mean, what are we doing here? Baseball just discredits himself whenever they feel like it. I mean, it's a joke. It's a disaster.
No problem with it whatsoever.
I mean, you don't think Cora should be a finalist either? The Red Sox were picked last in the division.
To be honest, I didn't even look at the AL managers of the year because this was something that popped up as like anger in my Twitter feed from Braves fans. I was like, come on, really? I got to worry about this. He's not going to win anyway. It doesn't matter. Just enjoy the World Series.
Well, they are. They're world champions, and everybody else can shove it up their rear ends. How about that? Because the Braves won it, and Brian Snitker, no matter what the award says, when you include the regular season and the postseason, he's the National League Manager of the Year because he's got a ring to prove it. So they can have at it, but that's just discrediting. That's just ridiculous. And the Braves, the most valuable player award, and Freddie Freeman, Riley, no. All right. I thought there's value in the award, not just who's the best player in the game. Pick the best player you want to. I'd say Juan Soto is the best player, but what about the most valuable player? I think they missed that too. And this isn't just me being a Braves homer.
No. I thought Harper for a time was going to run away with that, and then the Braves came back and overtook the Phillies and convincingly. Freeman or Riley should be on that list. Yeah,
I agree. If you ask me who is the I think I've argued this for a long time though, Darren. I've always thought there's a major difference in the MVP and who is the best player in the league. But there's that they don't differentiate. It's just who's the MVP is just apparently who the best player is. I don't know. But I personally still think the best player in the National League until he's not is Juan Soto. I've thought that for a couple of years, especially after he popped on the scene and he's just been consistent. Mm-hmm. But who's the most valuable player? Some years it might be the same person, but other years it's not. And this year I think they missed the mark there too. So
I mean, the Padres fell from grace. Manager eventually gets fired. They missed the postseason. The Nationals were the Nationals this year. The Phillies were overtaken by the Braves. So you've got guys who didn't lead their team to success. They're great players. Right. They didn't lead their team to success. Cy Young is the best pitcher, right? Best pitcher. But MVP, yeah, it should matter that you carried your team somewhere.
And I also, and while we're on it, I also think there's years where a pitcher could be and should be the MVP. There have been many who obviously have been in the category, but you could win the Cy Young and the MVP, or there might be a year where you could even win the MVP and not the Cy Young. I doubt that would be very common, if at all. But I mean, generally, if you're an MVP pitcher, you're more than likely the Cy Young Award winner as well. Those two can absolutely correlate. But I just wow. I saw that last night and I was like, ooh, yeah, I think they missed the boat on this one. But it is what it is. You're the most valuable player on this show. We know that because you keep us running along here. Darren is going to power us through the next couple of hours with Mike and Keith and all of you. But last night, did anybody see how that NFL game ended? Holy moly, off the crossbar, and the Bears lose. They scored 21 points in the fourth quarter to bring themselves all the way back into it and couldn't quite get it done. Ended up being a very entertaining Monday Night Football game. I did not expect that.
Yeah, and everyone's talking about that taunting penalty that probably shouldn't have been a penalty. I mean, the guy, he made a play, and yeah, maybe at the very end kind of looks at the other sideline, but you can't call that there, right? I mean, that wasn't egregious.
No.
It didn't look to me like he actually said something. It was more like he was standing there.
I agree. Taunting penalties are always, I try to be a little open-minded, even though sometimes I'm not, but I try to be because you never know what leads to it. Like there could have been chirping all game and you just don't know. I'm not saying that's what happened here. I have no idea what happened. I did not like the call. I don't think you can call it there, period, the end. But with some of these taunting penalties, you see some things and you're like, that's not taunting. And then if you actually got the full story, it was like this guy, we've told him to shut up 6 times and he hasn't done it. And just because he didn't flip the bird or throw a punch or raise his hands or something like that, we popped him because he wouldn't. But we don't ever know. And generally, if that's the case, somebody probably just needs to step out and say, hey, he had 6 warnings in the game. And you know what I mean? He didn't quiet himself because we don't know what happens in those helmets. But I'm with you. To your point, Darren, yeah, I don't know how you throw a flag there. I just eat it, eat it. I mean, I don't know what that's affecting. What's that affecting? How did it affect the game? That's my question.
I mean, it's a pretty emotional part of the game, too. It's a pretty big moment. It's a pretty big play. And he didn't do anything egregious. And then he bumped the ref, and it looked to me more like the ref kind of slid back into him. So, I don't know.
12:11 here on a Tuesday afternoon. Craig, on the Share Healthcare chat lines, they could have a most valuable and a most outstanding player award separately. Yeah, I mean, like the College World Series has the most outstanding player award. I've always liked that. I appreciate that. I think it's great. Scrolling up here, Aaron says Missouri will fight unlike the Gators, but we can make it a game if we play our game and execute, obviously referencing the Gamecocks here. We're going to obviously talk much more about this coming up in just a little bit. Not never. That's poor wording there, Darren. But I always think that game times to fans matter a little bit more than they actually do. Although there are times where they certainly matter a lot. But this week, I actually do think that it matters in favor of South Carolina because you're going to a different time zone against a team that's really struggling. So you don't have to play at 11 a.m. and then you don't have to play at night on the road where they have not played well on the road at all this year. Carolina hasn't, against the team who's looking for life in Missouri. That will juice them up being at home and stuff like that under the lights, but you're going to get kind of an afternoon 4 o'clock lazy type kick, and maybe that plays in favor of the Gamecocks. I'm not sure.
And what type of atmosphere will you actually get? I mean, I don't know exactly the type of atmosphere Missouri's going to pack in there anyway. And at least it's not a night game. It's not an early game, like you said. So either way that could be a negative isn't there. It's more of a typical game day atmosphere. And honestly, I don't expect much of an atmosphere.
I don't either at all. The last time Carolina won on the road, if I'm not mistaken, was against East Carolina back in week 2 of the season. Since then, it's been loss at Georgia, loss at Tennessee, loss at A&M, and those have all been a little ugly, put that politely. So we'll see if they can put that behind them. But again, we're going to get more into that here in just a little while, Darren. But today is the official start of college basketball season. You've called college basketball games for a long, long time. This is a unique time of the year, much like the spring, where you get the overlap, because in the spring you got college baseball, at least in our neck of the woods, that starts to kind of mesh in there with the hoops guys and gals, and now you've got hoops meshing in with football. So for guys like people like you and I, we got a lot to go through every day, and we'll try to stay on top of it as much as we can. But as I mentioned, the biggest game for teams in this state is at 5 o'clock today. Number 1 South Carolina on the road at 5th-ranked NC State. I'm really anxious to speak to Keith about this. He is, I would call him an expert when it comes to women's basketball. He knows the Carolina ladies inside and out. And this is just another perfect example of Dawn Staley, her aggressiveness in scheduling against the best teams in the country. NC State has an incredible opportunity today to make a statement against Carolina, who's really good preseason, everything. Number 1 SEC champions, all this, that, and the other, a bunch of All-American awards. I mean, they have all the accolades on their shoulders today, and so they're going to have an incredible challenge there. And then coming up this weekend, guess where they're headed? Sioux Falls, South Dakota. Yeah, the Invitational. They've got South Dakota to play up there, and hopefully they can make their way through that. Elsewhere, though, across the landscape of hoops, in the state of South Carolina. As I already mentioned, the men, they've got USC Upstate at 7 o'clock tonight. That's on the SEC Network Plus as well. If you're not going to listen to it and you want to make sure you can watch it, again, the SEC Network Plus will have that one. And then you've got the College of Charleston off today, starting their schedule Thursday at home against South Carolina State. Remember, November 16th, North Carolina comes to TD Arena to take on Pat Kelsey and the Cougars. That game is going to be televised on the CBS Sports Network as well. Tonight, the Citadel is up at Pittsburgh. That's on the ACC Network Extra at 7 o'clock. So if you want to watch the Dogs tip it off, there you go. Clemson's going to host PC. Last I heard, the Blue Hose basketball program, they do punt. We'll see how they do tonight at 7 at Little John Coliseum. That is also an ACC Network Plus game. Charleston Southern plays tonight at home against Johnson and Wales at the Buccaneer Fieldhouse. That's a 7 o'clock tip. And Coastal Carolina gets going on Thursday against Ferrum College up there in Conway. So that is a brief look at your college basketball schedule there, Darren. But I have a feeling that this is going to be a pretty good year for hoops in this state. I have a strange feel. I think Carolina's a little bit better than people probably think they are. I don't know what that means. Don't even ask me. But I do think they're better than people think they are. I think you're going to get a lot of what you've seen the last couple of years with Clemson. They're going to be in a lot of games and have a chance to win a lot of games. I think the College of Charleston is going to have some work to do early. And then I think they're probably going to start to kind of put some things together there as well, Darren.
They feel good about themselves. I can tell you that. I was talking with Everett German, who does their play-by-play, and I've been with him the past couple of weekends. They feel pretty good about it. They really do. They got some transfers in there. They feel good. You know, they have an early test with North Carolina, but let's see where they go. I know they feel good about it.
Yeah, I've heard similar things. I haven't spoken to Everett like you have. We'll have to get him on here soon and let him dish a little bit more on them. But you're right. I mean, they've brought a bunch. Them in South Carolina have done something very similar. I mean, obviously there wasn't a coaching change in Columbia. Earl Grant left for Boston College with the Cougs, but they brought in a whole new crop of dudes, and sometimes that's good, sometimes it's bad. But from what I understand, I don't know that it's a bad thing for either program. I think they've kind of reshaped themselves very quickly through the transfer portal.
And the difference is the college did it with a new coach. I mean, a guy who's polar opposite from their last coach. The whole mentality of the team, the whole philosophy, the whole look of the College of Charleston will be dramatically different with Pat Kelsey, he's kind of like Shane Beamer. I mean, just infusing energy and enthusiasm and optimism. And I mean, you talk to him, and even in a casual setting, like when he was on with us, you're like, yeah, I'm buying what this dude's selling. I mean, I don't even know what he was selling, but I was buying it. He's similar to Beamer in that way.
I think what he was selling was just the whole thing, just like Shane does. Like, hey, he believes in not just the program, but he believes in the city of Charleston and in the history of the program and things like that. I mean, he's a guy that doesn't see any obstacles as to why they can be successful. And so, we'll see what it looks like. But I'll pull up the Cougs schedule here. They've got, SC State, Lipscomb, Loyola to start, and then North Carolina. And of course, they got to go to Stillwater against Oklahoma State. So there's going to be a couple of toughies back to back. But they've got some great opportunities to kind of get things going here early. By the way, the first three games are part of that Rising Coaches Classic thing that's kind of going around the country. So that'll be pretty neat. So, yeah, hoop season is here, and we're certainly going to get more into that. All right, the Share Healthcare chat lines again. Shoot us a note, give us a comment, whatever you want, and we'll make you a part of our program. In addition to all the in-state games, again, the State Farm Champions Classic tonight, 4 of the traditional powers in college hoops will go head-to-head. Kansas and Michigan State at 7 on ESPN from the Garden, where the Jayhawks are 4-point favorites there. And then tonight at 9 o'clock, you've got Duke and Kentucky, a 9-10 matchup. It is Coach K's final season at the helm with the Blue Devils. Duke's a 3-point favorite. Of course, that one being played at the Garden as well. Is Dickie V there tonight, or is he going through? Okay.
Yeah, he's still. There was a post on Instagram of him getting chemo. I don't think he's on the road right now, but the prognosis from what I understand, is good. I mean, he's in the fight, but the prognosis is as good as could be, I guess.
Good for him.
Yeah.
He is great for basketball. This just in as well into the inbox here. Aaliyah Boston, Zia Cook, and Destiny Henderson all named to the Naismith Trophy watch list. 3 players, 1 team. Those are all women's basketball players at South Carolina. So that news coming out today as they're set to take on the Wolfpack tonight. Debbie Antonelli will have her eyes all over this one. Debbie, of course, played at NC State. She's a Hall of Famer up there, and she knows both programs inside and out. All right,
I'll say this quickly about NC State. Personal note, Wes Moore, who was at Chattanooga, he was the women's coach at Chattanooga when I was in the SoCon for years. One of the nicest dudes, there are some coaches that stand out when you cover them because of just their sheer openness and willingness to just talk to you and be a human and not be worried that I'm going to overstep my boundary or the analyst will. I mean, willing to share information and be honest and show you film and talk to you about anything. Great dude. And when he left there and went to NC State, got them going, he's got his hands full tonight. But he is a great, great dude. So I'm happy that he's got the Wolfpack where they are.
Yeah, absolutely. And what an opportunity tonight against Dawn Staley.
Yeah.
Hey, that's going to be I'm excited to watch this one. I'm going to convince my little girls that they need to watch it too. They love basketball. I bought them a little hoop and all this stuff. Jamie in the Share Healthcare chat lines. I went to Missouri for our game 2 years ago, and it was by far the worst venue in the SEC. Only highlight was touring Anheuser-Busch. I've never been. It's on my bucket list because I want to get every ballpark in the SEC. But I've heard similar things. I mean, the worst ballpark itself, I haven't been to Missouri, but I feel comfortable in saying this is Vanderbilt. But the advantage of going to Vandy is it's in Nashville. So, all right. So you go watch the game for a few hours. Generally, when you go up there, your team wins, and then you go out party afterwards. I don't know a whole lot about Columbia, Missouri, but glad you said that. I've heard other people say that too. It's just not a great trip. It's not easy to get to either. Like you have to fly into either St. Louis or
that would make sense.
Or Milwaukee. No, not Milwaukee.
St. Louis would make sense.
Yeah, no,
it's a major airport.
Yeah, it's kind of a haul. I mean, I don't know. I'll have to look at it later. But I've had other people say there's a couple of different airports that you kind of fly into. I'm trying to pull it up on my map here, but I can't. Kansas City.
Okay.
Milwaukee. What am I talking about? Kansas City. You fly into either St. Louis or Kansas City and drive over. Take that for what it's worth.
Yeah.
If you are a fan of college football,
St. Louis is 107 miles away. Yeah, it's a haul.
Yeah, and Kansas City's
farther, I think.
Is it? I mean, some people fly in, I think, to Columbia, Missouri, but it's really expensive to do that.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, you can fly around the Southeast too, but generally, if you're going to road trips around here, unless you're going to literally College Station or there, you drive. I mean, it might be 7, 8, 10 hours in the car, but it's better than 16, or more.
Yeah.
2 days, basically. If you're a college football fan, though, Darren, tonight you get Maction. Tomorrow you get Maction. And then Thursday you get action because North Carolina's at Pittsburgh and the over-under is 73.5. So tonight starts 5 straight evenings of college football. If that's all you want to watch here in the month of November, even with some of these great college hoops games getting going, the NFL heating up and things of that nature, you've got football every night tonight through Saturday at the collegiate level. Buffalo, Miami, Akron, Western Michigan, and Ohio, Eastern Michigan tonight. None of those teams are really that good, but it is college football, so enjoy if you so please. Toledo and Bowling Green, Ball State, Northern Illinois, Kent State, Central Michigan tomorrow night. None of those teams are really that good either, but enjoy if that's what you want to do. But it is 5 straight nights of college football. And then also we're going to get the second set of rankings for the top 4, Darren, and we'll get into more of this with Mike Morgan. I don't know what it's going to look like. I mean, I know what it's going to look like at 1. It's Georgia. I mean, is Bama still 2? I kind of assume they are. They've done, I mean, They didn't look good, but who looked better behind them to overtake them? Nobody.
Yeah, exactly. Right. I mean, is Bama, did they pass the eye test last week? No. I mean, they had 6 yards rushing, but who are you going to put above them? I think Bama is 2. I think Oregon is 3 and Ohio State is 4. That would be my guess. And then
Probably.
I'm curious, right? I'm curious to see if Cincinnati falls a little bit for their, again, breathtaking win against Tulsa. Does the committee bang them for that? And then I guess who's just knocking on the door to get in?
I mean, I don't. I mean, obviously Michigan State is out, so I don't see how you're not right. Honestly, I don't. I think it's by default 2, 3, and 4. I think default is Bama, Oregon, and Ohio State, and then Cincinnati is probably by default going to be at 5, I guess. Michigan at 6, and maybe
you could bump Michigan over Cincinnati if you're the committee, if you're that unimpressed with Cincinnati's performance against Tulsa.
Well, I mean, but you got, so let me ask you this. So, I mean, Michigan lost to Michigan State, but Michigan State has what we would deem a worse loss than Michigan by virtue of the upset in Purdue, I guess. So, I mean, how important is head-to-head going to be between those two teams, and how much does it? I think it does kind of matter, but
if
Michigan State still controls it. If
we put them on a field today, A, Michigan would be favored. B, who do you think would win? And I think that the committee tried to do that last week. I think the rankings largely said, here's who we think would win if they actually played each other. For the most part, there were some oddities in there because they got a little scatterbrained. But I think for the most part, that's what they were going for, more so than record with unbeaten Cincinnati and stuff. It wouldn't shock me if they bumped Michigan, who I believe was idle. If they weren't idle, they won. I know Michigan's got Penn State this week, but it wouldn't shock me if they bumped Michigan over them.
Yeah, I mean, I mentioned this yesterday, and I know it's kind of a chuckle in, people don't want to hear it, but here's this strange situation again where Notre Dame's kind of hanging in there, and everybody's going, well, yeah, but Cincinnati beat them. I know they beat them. I get that. But that was in week 2?
Yeah, it was early, 2, 3.
Mean, how good's Notre Dame looked the past 3-4 weeks, and how good Cincinnati looked?
I think if you're the committee, so I kind of dismissed this quickly yesterday. And then I actually got into a conversation with a Notre Dame fan after the show and convinced myself that you are actually right. Because if Cincinnati, even if they continue to win and they continue to win the way they're currently winning, and Notre Dame continues to improve at a steady rate, you can make the very clear argument that, okay, even though you beat Notre Dame in week 2, 3, whatever it was, the better football team right now is Notre Dame. A lot has to play out in Notre Dame's favor.
Oh, yeah.
But if it all falls their way, and if they take care of their business, I'm not going to sit here and kick that to the curb. It's not likely, but it's definitely not impossible.
What's strange, I know we got to run here, but what is – so they're at Virginia this week, and then they got Georgia Tech and Stanford. And I'm bringing this up.
It will be interesting.
It will be, yeah. And I'm bringing up Notre Dame just because they always seem to be right in that what do we do with Notre Dame scenario. Except last year they're in the ACC. But I would ask you, and I know if you don't have their schedule pulled up, you're not going to be able to guess it. But what is Notre Dame's best win? I think it's one of these 3. Is it North Carolina, which they beat at home? Is it Wisconsin, who's playing better all of a sudden? Or is it Purdue, which they beat by 2 touchdowns? I mean, those are ahead of Florida State, Toledo, Virginia Tech, Southern Cal, Navy. So who is it of those 3? I don't know.
Well, let's see what Purdue can do against Ohio State, and maybe that'll change our minds.
Bingo. That's exactly right. Yeah, I totally agree. All right, 12:29 Tuesday afternoon, time for a timeout. When we return, a lot of T's in there. Keith Allsep with the Locked on the Gamecocks podcast will pop in. Mike Morgan coming up an hour 2 as well. Don't go anywhere. The JB and Goldwater Show. We'll be right back.
This is Mike Mazzell for Stokes Volkswagen on Ashley Phosphate Road. You know what happens when you sell record numbers of new vehicles? That's right, we take in record numbers of local trades. Despite what the news is saying, quality pre-owned vehicles really aren't that hard to find. You just need to know where to look. Stokes Volkswagen on Ashley Phosphate and on the web at stokesvw.com. We've got over 1,200 pre-owned cars, trucks, SUVs, and all at a fraction of the price when new. Every vehicle has been inspected and reconditioned, many with the balance of factory warranty. Best of all, at Stokes Volkswagen, you don't need perfect credit to get approved for a quality pre-owned vehicle. And we'll take any trade in any condition, even if you owe thousands more than it's worth. Don't forget, we'll buy your car even if you don't buy a car from us. You're going to love our pre-owned selection, I guarantee it. So come see us today at Stokes Volkswagen on Ashley Phosphate or stokesvw.com.
Peace and love at Stokes VW.
Negative trade equity financed a new loan subject to lender approval.
People don't like to get stuck in traffic, stuck in the mud, stuck at work. And two others you probably don't think much about: stuck with a big medical bill or stuck with a healthcare program that doesn't fit who you are. Experience true medical freedom with Share Healthcare. More affordable, more options, user-friendly, and biblically sound. You can join right now. Explore a new way to show you care with Share Healthcare. Join us today at sharehealthcare.com. sharehealthcare.com.
Wando Power Equipment, the trusted home of Hustler zero-turn residential and commercial mowers. There is nobody more trusted in South Carolina than our friends from Wando Power Equipment. They've been providing elite commercial and residential service for over 30 years. Landscape Services have turned to their selection of Hustler zero-turn mowers like the Raptor. Bigger, stronger, faster, and the most durable Raptor Hustler has ever designed. Located on Daniel Island and online at wandopower.com. Wando Power Equipment, owned by the Price family, the home of Hustler zero-turn mowers, rentals, service, and specializing in family and friendship.
You hear me talk about Dog and Duck all the time, and there's no other place I'm going to watch my college and NFL than the Dog and Duck. They have 3 locations: Bell Hall, Park West, and Clements Ferry Road. They have specials all football season long, like $12 pitchers of their own D2 brew, $5 pints of Sierra Nevada, weekly pick'em sheets with prizes, and the best wings in town, bar none. For all your football, college, and NFL, the Dog and Duck, Clements Ferry Road, Bell Hall, and Park West.
Motley Rice LLC is a law firm with international reach, but it hasn't lost its Carolina roots. The Motley Rice team fights every day for people harmed by products including asbestos and talc exposure, medical drugs and devices, and also catastrophic injuries and auto recalls, including dangerous Takata airbags. Motley Rice is headquartered in Mount Pleasant at 28 Bridgeside Boulevard. Visit motleyrice.com. Thank you, Motley Rice, for supporting the JB and Goldwater Show and the Big Gamecock Preview Show.
What's up, everybody? This is South Carolina singer-songwriter Patrick Davis, and I might live in Nashville, Tennessee now, but guess what? I can always keep up with the news back in South Carolina because I've got the JB and Goldwater Show. Thank you, JB and Darren, for being live, loud, and online.
You're welcome, Patrick. Thank you for thanking me. I'll see Patrick in a couple of weeks. I don't know how many tickets he has left, but if you're going to be in town for the Clemson Carolina game, the Toys for Tots annual concert put on by Patrick in the Vista, you need to head to patrickdavismusic.com and try to snatch up what's left there. It'll be a lot of fun the night before the Palmetto Bowl. Keith Allsep, host of the Locked On the Gamecocks podcast, 12:33 on a Tuesday afternoon. We'll spend the next half hour with him. This is, I'm surprised that Keith is in his chair. I don't know how he's able to stay seated when college basketball begins. He'll, as we all will, get to watch the Lady Gamecocks coming up today at 5 and the men after that at 7. Keith, you got all, this is just a great time of the year. What's up, bud?
Yeah, I mean, how about those Gamecocks? Gamecocks have a chance to get bowl eligible this Saturday in Missouri. I didn't have time to check the line last night. South Carolina opened as a 3-point underdog on Vegas Insider. It quickly dropped to 1, and last night the Gamecocks were anywhere from a half to a point and a half favorite. And then it was a pick 'em, and then Missouri was still favored by half or a point on some.
I'll check again. This morning I saw Missouri by a point, but I'll check now. It's moving around a lot.
I think a lot of what this is going to come down to, as far as the betting side, I can't speak to the games, we don't know just yet, but is Connor Bazelak going to be able to play or not? That's the starting quarterback for Missouri who was out last week. But I've literally heard nothing on that. Have y'all heard anything about him?
No firm update. MyBookie.ag still has Missouri as a 1-point favorite, but essentially it's a pick 'em. Whichever way this goes, it'll float around 1.5 somewhere.
All right, so I go to Vegas Insider, which has multiple sports books. That's my trusted source for games, and I'm scrolling trying to find it here. Missouri opened a 3-point favorite. South Carolina -1, pick -1, Missouri -0.5, Missouri -1, Missouri -1, South Carolina -1.
Yeah.
South Carolina -1. So, I mean, it's going to be –
it'll float right there. So, I mean, it's basically a pick 'em.
It is. And then, you got South Carolina women's basketball on the road at number 4, number 5, NC State in a game that for Dawn Staley could be titled "Revenge is a Dish Best Served Cold."
Yeah.
But you hope they're hot, because last year they were colder than a well digger's ass, and couldn't make a shot. I mean, even she said after that game that that game probably set basketball back about 50 years. Yeah, I think Destiny Henderson was like 1 for 13. Aaliyah Boston couldn't make a shot. Now South Carolina's ranked number 1. They're facing a very good NC State team who will have one of the most dynamic guards in the country. Her name is Diamond Johnson, and she's from Philly, and she's small, 5'4", 5'5". She was in the 50, 40, 90 club at Rutgers as a freshman.
Whoa.
Which means she shot over 50% from the field, over 40% from 3, and 90% from the free throw line. And she's a jet. She is a McDonald's All-American. Dawn Staley heavily recruited her. It came down to South Carolina and Rutgers. She left and has gone to NC State. And that matchup was Zia Cook, who led South Carolina in scoring last year and who really came into her own in the NCAA tournament. That's really going to be a key matchup to watch, as will be Alyssa Cunane, who's an All-American, 6'5" from Greensboro, against Aaliyah Boston. But it won't just be Aaliyah Boston, because South Carolina also has 6'7" Camila Cardoso, who was the ACC Freshman of the Year, Co-Defensive Player of the Year, and First Team All-ACC. And, they can throw 6'4" Letitia Amihir at her as well. So it's really going to be an intriguing game today that tips off at 4 Central and 5 Eastern on ESPN. And then, like you said, the men open up against USC Upstate. I think Frank Martin's son, Brandon, probably has the scout for that one, since he played there for 3 years.
Yeah.
And he may see time, because, South Carolina may have to rely heavily on 3-guard lineups until Keyshawn Bryant returns, because they don't have another true 6'6", 6'7" wing guy. Brandon Martin's probably the closest thing to that, and I think he may be more of a 4 than a 3. But a lot of interesting questions and question marks about this team, with the number of transfers, and then Jermaine Cousinard coming back. Really, intriguing. Josh Gray, who I never will forget, when I was a young coach at Goose Creek High School, I was over there with the Railbirds at the Roost when Sparky Woods, after his first recruiting class, they signed this kid from Eastern North Carolina named Kevin Wade, who was about 6'6", 350. And Jones Andrews' dad said, "Oh, my, who is that? He's big as a dormitory." And Josh Gray's probably the largest human being I've seen on South Carolina's campus. 7 foot, 255, but man, he's really ripped, and you can tell he loves the weight room. And he's really athletic and really good. I mean, he went to LSU, so we all know how much those LSU scholarships are worth.
That's right. Yeah, they probably didn't have to put him on scholarship. He got enough down there to get him through 10 years of college, I'm sure. I don't know. I'm just being facetious here, boys and girls. Yeah, as it pertains to the men, Keith, I mentioned to Darren earlier, I mean, you do as much checking in as you can with the people that you trust. The reality of it is we're not going to really know until we see them play. And even after we see them play tonight, unless it's a loss, which I'm not anticipating that, we're still not going to know a whole lot. We'll start to know more this weekend against better competition. So I'll be up there in Nashville playing at the what's that? I
forget the exact name of it.
It's the Harris Casino.
Yeah, it's at the casino.
Harris Casino.
Yeah,
Okay.
on the reservation.
I know the actual casino on the reservation, but they're playing in Nashville. The place is named after it. But yeah, I've been there a few times. I saw Allen Iverson there, as a matter of fact, one time. He was not happy when the lady outed him and called him Mr. Iverson. Yeah, so Darren or Keith, this men's squad. I mean, we're all kind of. I mean, people went to the exhibition the other day. The Gamecocks scored over 100 in an exhibition game for the first time since the year they went to the Final Four. That could be a good sign, right? But I think what most folks were most interested in was, what does Frank Martin look like, and can they shoot? Defense is generally going to make its way back to Frank Martin's. There's not going to be a lot of what you saw last year. I mean, I don't put a lot of stock in he's just lost how to coach defense or something like that. But can they shoot? And what does Frank look like? And so far, they've got some guys who can knock down some shots. It looks like, and Frank's Frank, so that could be a good sign.
I mean, we'll just have to see. I mean, when you're playing, Benedict and USC Upstate, that's a lot different than playing Alabama, Tennessee, Kentucky,
Bama's
Florida,
good.
Ole Miss, Mississippi State. I mean, and they're going to be challenged later in the non-con as well, playing Florida State, who's a perennial NCAA tournament team. They're playing 2-year contract. I think year one's maybe in is it in Rock Hill, and then the next year it's down in Jacksonville.
Oh, I don't know. I didn't know that, if that's the case. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, so I think that's interesting, because I did hear Frank. By the way, we will have Frank Martin on our program tomorrow as well. Looking forward to having Coach with us, in addition to JC Sherbert. But Keith, I think it's interesting. I did hear Frank on 107.5 The Game a couple of weeks ago with Bill Gunter in the morning, and he described the process that it was to get this thing done up in Rock Hill. And he mentioned to Bill, he said the guys that run that facility up there are big Gamecock fans, and they reached out to him and they said, we'd be interested in doing this, that, and the other, and he basically said, well, if you can get a big team, we'll come. And then they called back and said, how's Florida State sound? And so he actually made the call down to Florida State, and to try to help facilitate this, he got it done. But what I was getting at, Keith, is if they can have a pretty good year, something that can put them on the bubble or whatever, but you're looking for something to get you over the hump. Obviously, all that has to play out. He's going to have some really unique neutral site games that could go in his favor, and he didn't have to go far to play them. Asheville and Rock Hill. Generally these neutral site things, that they're often Never Land, but you're talking about a couple hours up the road one way and an hour of the road another way, and you're playing pretty good competition. I think that's a pretty savvy move by Coach Martin to get those type games, but get them close enough to home where fans can go see them play too.
Yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting. You get the game back with Clemson at Clemson. That'll be tough. You got Florida State in Rock Hill. You got Georgetown at home. You're going to play Western Kentucky and probably, I guess, Minnesota in that deal in Asheville. And Western Kentucky, that's where Cashberry is. I mean, Rick Stansberry. He used to be the head coach at Mississippi State. We call him Cashberry in the coaching community.
Do you know something we don't know, Keith?
I think everybody knows. Everybody knows.
Well, nonetheless, hopefully they'll beat them. It's going to be a gradual start to the season for Gamecock hoops, and then they hit that Georgetown, Florida State, Clemson stretch there. But certainly looking forward to checking them out tonight. Basketball season is here. Real quick, before we turn to football, Keith, give me the player that you're most interested in watching for both the men and the women. Is it Cardosa with the ladies? And if so, who is it with the men?
For the men, it's James Reese V, because when he's a Columbia native, and they let him wear number 0, which I'm sorry, I'm not letting a transfer from North Texas wear Sindarius Thornwell's number. But the guy's a demon defensively, and he really shot it well. He doesn't get to the free throw line much, and he really was not much of a three-point shooter at North Texas. You know, does he really flourish under Frank Martin? To me, it's him and Stevenson and then Josh Gray. So I really have 3. For the women, to me, the biggest factor for the women is not Cardosa. I know what she's going to do. She is probably the only player in the country that can guard Aaliyah Boston one-on-one. I saw it this summer in the Tournament of Americas when Brazil played the United States. That means going against her every day, Aaliyah Boston gets better. For me, the biggest question mark on the women's team is Bree Beal.
Okay.
She's a defensive specialist. Her offense has got to come around. She's got to be more confident. I'm not saying she's got to score 16 or 20 points a game. She doesn't, but she needs to be confident offensively, because when they stole that ball against Stanford and passed it to her, and she had an open lane to the basket for the layup that would have won the game, you could see the look in her eyes. She did not want to have to take that shot, and she missed it badly.
Mm-hmm.
And, they need her confidence high, because teams are going to pack it in. And somebody other than, the guards are going to have to make a shot. They're going to force somebody to have to make a shot, and it's probably going to be her and Victoria Saxton. And, we'll see how that goes. But Bree Beal, very talented player, very capable player, but to me, keeping her confident offensively throughout the season, particularly going into the postseason, will be a big key for this South Carolina team.
There are 11 members of the South Carolina women's basketball team, boys and girls, that are 6'1" or taller.
That's not fair. I want to be 6'1".
6'1" or taller. It's
there are 11 McDonald's All-Americans on the team, and Letitia Amihir, who's from Canada, was not eligible for that. And before her knee injury, she was the number one ranked player in her class. She, suffered back-to-back ACL injuries, one on each knee. She really came on at the end of last year. So that is really like 12 McDonald's All-Americans and 14 five-star players on this roster.
That's ridiculous. Have there ever been that many McDonald's All-Americans on a single women's roster?
So it's technically 11, because she did not qualify.
Okay. I'll count 11 as that question. That still counts.
Yeah.
The most I can remember is
I mean, that's 2/3 of your roster is a McDonald's All-American. More
than that.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. I mean, I hate to say it this way, but clearly they're the hunted guys. It's probably, if it's a disappointment if they don't win the national championship. Isn't that strange to say?
Dawn Staley said it. She said that is the mission. That's the goal for their program. They are in that position now, and that's a tough deal.
That's
because injuries can happen. The ball can bounce a funny way. I mean, just like last year, a girl from Stanford clearly reached her foot out to kick the ball when Zia Cook was doing the pullback dribble. They didn't call it. Bree Beal got shoved in the back about a minute earlier on a breakaway. They didn't call that. Even as much as I can't stand Kim Mulkey, when she was at Baylor and she had Brittany Griner, who's 6'8" and probably the most dominant player I've seen in women's basketball, they only won it once.
Right. Yeah, it's not
Asia Wilson only won it once. 2016, they probably should have won it, and they couldn't make a single jump shot in the second half of that Syracuse game.
Yeah,
they lost.
Well, they're the hunted this year, numero uno to start the season, and tonight is a big one against NC State up in Raleigh. 5:00 tip, 1-5 matchup there. Dawn trying to get them going here early in 21-22 Gamecock women's hoops. All right, Keith, I do want to move to football because for the first time in a long time, there's really nothing to complain about. South Carolina throttled the Florida Gators on Saturday night. Now they go to Missouri, and all of a sudden, as someone mentioned to me yesterday, it's amazing what hope can do for your football program. There are 3 winnable games left on the schedule. Carolina's 1 shy of bowl eligibility, but it all went right Saturday night for the Gamecocks.
Yeah, I mean, everything just kind of fell into place. It was a magical night. And, most of the time, one game every year, most teams, they have that game that just goes their way.
Mm-hmm.
South Carolina had that. Now, to quote the former head coach at South Carolina, so what? Now what?
Yeah.
All right. And so, yes, you beat Florida. They had, it lined up. I mean, there were all elements there for the upset except any evidence of life by South Carolina's offense, and clearly that changed, right? 282 yards rushing, downtown Jason Brown making big-time plays. They were great on first down. I think they had over half their total yards were on first down.
Yeah, amazing.
And then third down, they were 2 for 12 on third down. That's obviously not ideal, but, big game from Josh Vann, big game from Zaquandre White, who ran like his hair's on fire, big game from Kevin Harris, who looked like 2020 Kevin Harris, and that's a credit to the offensive line. They finally went back to more gap schemes. They put a fullback in like Mike Bobo did last year, and it worked. Wow. Game 9.
Yeah, well, I mean, here's the thing. I mean, this football team now has something that they haven't had even after wins against Eastern Illinois, East Carolina, Troy, Vanderbilt. None of them were quote unquote momentum games because, as I mentioned to somebody on Sunday, I said, look, I hate to say it this way, but when you walked out of Williams-Brice after you beat Vanderbilt and after you beat Troy, it felt like a loss, but it wasn't. It was a win. But the games felt like losses because in which they unfolded. That didn't feel like that on Saturday night. And the question now is, what do you do with it? And we asked Perry Orth yesterday, and I loved his answer. I said, look, Perry, they upset Auburn last year. They upset Georgia the year before. Why is this one a little bit different? Did it seem like it clicked more? And he said, absolutely. This thing, you could see it out there. The evidence was there on the offensive side of the football, Keith. We can sit here and break it all down all we want to, but they beat the crap out of Florida. And now this week is so important to harness that in and go out and do it again, because you know what? People now probably are expecting them to beat Missouri. They should. I think they're better than Missouri.
Well, I mean, that's to be determined, right? I mean, look,
sure.
Florida's give a damn was not very high.
Yeah, Darren pointed that out.
They had a lot of guys, you know, dealing with the flu. They were 4-4. They just got boat raced by Georgia. They really, all their goals were basically off the table. And Dan Mullen's got a quarterback that he can't figure out how to get going. I mean, the guy completes a lot of passes, but he completes a lot to the other team. And he did that Saturday with a fumble for a touchdown, and then he threw the interception that Cam Smith looked like an NFL wide receiver getting both, you know, toe taps down before he went out of bounds with it. And so where is Missouri's give a damn? They just got boat raced by Georgia.
Yeah.
They may be playing a backup quarterback. Their season's on the brink, but they're at home. They're not traveling. South Carolina's traveling where, quite frankly, they played like crap this year on the road.
Yep.
Every single game. East Carolina, awful. Okay. Tennessee, awful. Texas A&M, abysmal. And so
that's polite.
Shane Beamer has shown that he can handle adversity with his football team. Can you handle success? That's a big question. You know, can Jason Brown not, you know, pay attention to all the girls that are, you know, telling him how great he is this week? Can he not pay attention to the press clippings? Can he, you know, handle his business?
Missouri has some similarities. Am I getting some echo?
Yeah, every now and then Keith's mic gives a little reverb, so I play the mute, unmute game, but it normally works.
Okay. I'm still getting some of mine here, but let me try to fix this on my end. I can't hear anything from myself.
Yeah, come on back to us then. So Keith, we'll stick right to that with the I guess Missouri's give a damn level, right? And what you expect to see out of Missouri when the Gamecocks go there, and what can be different if it's Shane Beamer handling success. How can you make this different on the road than the last couple times on the road that were, I forget exactly which words you used, but abysmal was the last word.
Yeah.
It was. I think so. The biggest thing is Missouri is 129th out of 100 FBS teams in rush defense. They give up 270 yards per game. They give up about 36 points per game. And so if you're South Carolina, you need to run the ball. Now, Missouri, they completely sold out against Georgia to try to stop the run. Georgia didn't deal with it especially well. Josh Vann was the only wide receiver that caught a pass Saturday night, and he caught 7 of them. So if you do like Kentucky, if Missouri does like Kentucky and says, we're not going to let you run it and we're not going to let Josh Vann beat us, who does it?
Yeah.
You know, who can win a one-on-one battle where Jason Brown put the ball on the money on the road? Those are two things we have not really seen this year.
And I'll say this too, Missouri's, you know, their calling card under Eli. There you go. Gotcha. Their calling card is offense, but they only, outside of the Vanderbilt game where they scored 37, average 18 points per game in the SEC. And this is a good Gamecocks defense. And now they've got even more momentum because they have an offense that they're like, oh, wait a second, they're alive over there. Okay, that's good news. We don't know if their quarterback's going to play in Connor Bazelak. And to add on top of all that, I know we're at the end of the hour, but we'll give you the final couple of minutes on this, Keith. There are little pieces of Eli Drinkwitz that reminds me of Steve Spurrier, just how he acts like Spurrier in the 90s. but his success rate isn't there, although it is against South Carolina. And his little snippets throughout the summer about, I've been in that ballpark, Williams-Brice. Yeah, we won there a couple times. He's kind of a snarky little snoot. And if I'm Shane Beamer, that stuff is plastered all over the walls this week, because there are just some guys that you want to just go out and literally pound until they tap out. And I think that Eli Drinkwitz is quickly rising up that board for not just South Carolina, but a lot of others in the league. He's something.
Well, I mean, look, if, you're Eli Drinkwitz and you're at NC State and you put up a great resume as a play caller, and you told Will Muschamp you're taking the job and he picks Brian McClendon over you, I'd probably have a grudge too. So I can't really hold it against him. I mean, he is what he is. He looks a little nerdy looking guy with the glasses, not ruggedly handsome with the glasses like me. But he's a ball coach. He can call plays, and they've been really good. Hopefully they're not good on Saturday, and hopefully South Carolina can do something they have not done under Shane Beamer, which is put together 2 complete games back to back. I mean, we will find out on Saturday if the Florida game was a fluke because Florida, their give-a-damn wasn't very good and everything lined up, or South Carolina is really turning this thing around and they do have momentum. That's what we're going to find out on Saturday in Columbia, Missouri.
I hope Carolina can figure it out. It's a great opportunity. Bowl eligibility in year 1 under Shane Beamer, regardless of what it looks like, would be a huge boost for this program from a momentum standpoint. And they're going to try to get it done up there, and what's probably going to be a Chili Como looking to bring the Mayor's Cup back home. Who knew they even had one? Never seen the trophy that you got between A&M and the Gamecocks because Carolina's never beat them. Who knew? But it's out there. How about?
I have seen that one against Missouri because I remember Connor Shaw holding it up.
Yeah.
After one of the all-time great performances. That was a Kirk Gibson type deal.
Yeah.
Connor, with the ankle big as a volleyball, coming in and leading Carolina to an epic comeback win against a really good Gary Pinkel Missouri team.
I had a lot of respect for Gary Pinkel. I think that's part of and I had a lot of respect for Barry Odom as well. Don't have much for Eli Drinkwitz. Hopefully Carolina can take care of that for all of us. Hey, man, have a wonderful week. We got to let you run on that note. But as always, we really appreciate it. The Locked On the Gamecocks podcast is some kind of special. And who do you have? What's going on today, tomorrow, and the rest of the week?
All right, so we got JC Sherbert coming up this afternoon. Tomorrow, Augusta Stone will dissect South Carolina and NC State, and then we'll do our coordinator quick hitters. And then we got great guests lined up for the end of the week as well.
Wonderful. Make sure you've done it. Listen to the Locked On the Gamecocks podcast hosted by the very, as he points out, handsome Keith Allsep. Have a wonderful week, brother.
Ruggedly handsome.
Oh, ruggedly.
Gamecocks versus everybody.
See you, bud. Thank you. There you go, Keith Allsep over there in Texas. All right, time for a timeout. When we return, we will be monitoring Shane Beamer's press conference today. Anything noteworthy we will pass along. Mike Morgan ahead in less than 20 minutes as well. Hang tight. The JB and Goldwater show, very proudly presented by Motley Rice. We'll be right back. Right here in our backyard is Motley Rice LLC, a law firm that hasn't lost its Carolina roots. The Motley Rice team fights every day for South Carolinians who were injured while traveling by plane or bus, harmed by medical drugs and devices, or burdened by dangerous auto recalls, including Takata airbags. Motley Rice is headquartered in Mount Pleasant at 28 Bridgeside Boulevard. We are honored to have Motley Rice as a sponsor for the JB and Goldwater show and the Big Gamecock Preview show.
At Patriots Point Naval and Maritime Museum, families walk in the footsteps of our nation's heroes, the brave ones who risked their lives to defend our way of life. Home to the aircraft carrier USS Yorktown, USS Laffey, and the USS Clamagore, there's more than 1 million square feet of exhibit space to roam. White Glove certified, we have several new health safety measures in place to enhance the visitor experience. Come for the day and leave feeling inspired. One of the most impressive museums in the country, located right here in Mount Pleasant. Visit patriotspoint.org for more. We'll see you soon.
People don't like to get stuck in traffic, stuck in the mud, stuck at work, and two others you probably don't think much about, stuck with a big medical bill or stuck with a healthcare program that doesn't fit who you are. Experience true medical freedom with Share Healthcare. More affordable, more options, user-friendly, and biblically sound. You can join right now. Explore a new way to show you care with Share Healthcare. Join us today at sharehealthcare.com. sharehealthcare.com.
This is Scott Glaze, head golf professional at the links at Stono Ferry, located on the outskirts of Charleston, South Carolina. I'm inviting you to tee it up on one of the most scenic and challenging courses in the Lowcountry. Our back nine is highlighted with 3 holes that border the Intercoastal Waterway. Visit stonoferrygolf.com to book tee times and discover all that Stono Ferry has to offer. The links at Stono Ferry is a former South Carolina Golf Course of the Year and is also home to the College of Charleston men's and women's golf teams. Come see us. We would love to have you. stonoferrygolf.com.
Family vacations, a new car, a new boat, all cost money, but you don't necessarily have to make more to afford any of that if you can save cash that's flying out the window now. iHelp Consulting can help you finally get the kids to Disney World, upgrade the minivan, or drop that new boat in the water next summer. Let Daniel and iHelp Consulting consult with you. No fees, just savings. You pay them a percentage of those savings. Save on essential services, credit card fees, you name it. Let them find it. These folks are incredible. iHelpConsulting.com. How can I help you?
Hi, I'm Chris Half, Public Information Officer at the Patriots Point Naval and Maritime Museum. We're home of the mighty USS Yorktown, USS Laffey, Clamagore, and Vietnam experience. And we're a proud partner of the JB and Goldwater Show. We invite you and your family to come see us and enjoy a day on Charleston Harbor. Visit patriotspoint.org for more information. And now, it is my honor to present the National Anthem.
Live, loud, and online.
All right, 108 Tuesday afternoon. Welcome back to the JB and Goldwater Show, driven by Stokes Volkswagen, StokesVW.com. If you are hungry, how about check out the DoorDash app and order you a cheesesteak from DB's Cheesesteaks, DB'sCheesesteaks.com. That's where their entire menu is. We also have their menu up on our website, JBandGoldwaterShow.com. Whatever you order, though, don't forget the boardwalk fries. And try out, if you haven't, the Buffalo Chicken Cheesesteak at DB's Cheesesteaks in the Lowcountry in West Ashley. And as we always tell you, tonight would be a great night to go hang out at the Dog and Duck. It's a little chilly out, but it's also kind of nice enough to, you know, if you want to sit outside for happy hour or something like that. All the hoops that's going on. You're going to have multiple TVs to watch basketball. You'll even have some football on. Perfect night to go hang out at a place like the Dog and Duck, 3 locations. So if you're in town, maybe make that your place of choice. And if you've got the kids, the doggy daycare is all you need to order. It has everything for $15. It's insane.
And you could fill out a pick'em sheet when you're there. It's always split up, half college, half pro, winner. You know, I'm not exactly sure what the winner gets. I believe you get a gift certificate and maybe some swag, maybe a dog and duck shirt. But really, as me and some of my buddies talk about with the pick'em sheets, it's not about what you win, because you're winning pride. And when you don't win week after week after week, like even one week when you only lose 2 games and you're positive you're going to win, and then someone only missed 1 game and you don't, you lose pride. I don't know who that happened to. That's just hypothetically speaking.
Yeah. Maybe that was your neighbor.
Yeah, maybe.
Oh, okay.
Maybe.
Yeah, maybe. I Help Consulting. You need to ask yourself, how can I help you? They present our segment on Tuesdays with Keith Allsep. I Help Consulting, owned by our friend Daniel Owens. How about a healthcare facility that saved over $50,000 in credit card processing fees? $50,000. Yeah, but that's not the only way that they can save you money. It's pretty easy. If you go to ihelpconsulting.com, you can call or text Daniel Owens, set up a quick appointment, and if you are interested, you send them your information. They look over it. If there are savings to be had, guess what? They save them for you. And how do you pay them? You don't pay them unless they're savings, and then you pay a percentage of those savings at iHelp Consulting. I've gotten to know Daniel really well. There's some people that are good dudes, and there's some people that are great dudes. This guy is a great dude. He started doing this just to help people, and it turned into a full-time, full-fledged business. Anybody, anywhere, he can help you do it. iHelp Consulting, iHelpConsulting.com. Ask yourself, how can I help you? I want to go back. So a lot of this we're going to go over on Friday in the Big Gamecock preview show.
Mm-hmm.
But I want to bring up some interesting numbers with Mizzou, because I think that I know a lot of people understand that Missouri's defense hasn't been good. But I think there's this perception, Darren, that not necessarily here, amongst us. I don't think that you and I necessarily think this, but there are some people that are like, well, Eli Drinkwitz has done a nice job since he's been there. Has he? I mean, if you actually go back and look at what they've done. Now, keep in mind, last year was a COVID season with all SEC games, okay? And for all the non-Gamecock fans out there, this is not a comparison to South Carolina football. Don't misunderstand me, all right? I know how bad it's been in Columbia. But when you go back and look at, they started out last year, it was kind of a tough slate. You had Bama and you had Tennessee on the road. They lost both those. Then remember, they beat LSU. And that's where everybody was like, wow, wait, this guy's probably pretty good.
That one game shapes a lot of people's perception of Drinkwitz and Missouri, because they're Missouri and they're basically irrelevant, particularly around here. Yes. But that one was bang in your face. You're like, oh, weren't they getting better? Didn't I remember that they're getting better?
That's exactly right. Because, and you pair that the fact we didn't know anything about LSU yet. They were 3 games removed from winning the national championship.
Mm-hmm.
So we didn't know that LSU was falling way down the mountain just yet. Now they, of course, turned around and pounded Gamecocks that year. But I mean, but by all means, it was still a big win for Eli Drinkwitz. I don't want to discredit it. It was a huge win. I mean, they hung 45 on them, and then that Vandy game the next week got postponed, and then they beat Kentucky, who was expected to be pretty good, and they beat them with defense. Yeah, and then after that, let me tell you what else happened. They got beat by Florida 41-17. They went to South Carolina last year in an ugly game and beat the Gamecocks, who were bad, as we all know. 17-10 though. They didn't score a lot of points. Carolina's defense had not quit just yet. They were about to. They did beat Vanderbilt 41-0. And they hung on to beat Arkansas, who, remember, last year kind of slipping towards the end of the season. They beat them 50-48. So that stretch there, they had won 5 of 6 games. So, I mean, obviously, in this league in a COVID year, you give credit where credit is due, and they deserve credit for that. So, bravo, no doubt. And then they got pounded by Georgia, and they got pounded by Mississippi State, and then they didn't play Iowa in the Music City Bowl. And those scores were 49-14 and 51-32. And then you turn the page to this year. They beat Central Michigan, but they give up 24. They lose to Kentucky. They give up 35. They beat Southeast Missouri State, but they give up 28. They lost at Boston College. They gave up 41. They lost to Tennessee 62-24. North Texas, they beat them 48-35. They lost against A&M 35-14, 37-28 a win over Vandy, 43-6 a loss to Georgia. By my math, in 19 games that Eli Drinkwitz has coached in Columbia, Missouri, Darren, 13 of 19 games that he has coached in, that is 68%. They've given up at least 35 points.
Whew.
That is a lot. And the last 7 games, they've given up their last 7 games in the SEC, they've given up 35 or more. In 5 of those 7, they've given up 40 or more. All right. And you pair that with the fact that, and I get it, Bazelak couldn't play against Georgia, but I mean, come on, man. I mean, how much of a difference was he going to be against Georgia? You know what I mean? Like, so you got a team in Missouri with outside of scoring 37 against Vandy this year that's averaged 18 points per game in the SEC. I mean, dude, I'm not really the smartest guy in the world, but you know, he's 9-10 in 19 games, and he had a little run last year, and that you deserve credit for that. But when it comes down to what have you done for me lately, well, he's 4-7 in his last 11 games. They can't stop anybody, and they can't even score on offense. I'm not saying that it's this guy's bad or anything like that. All I'm saying is I think that a lot of times we have these perceptions of, well, he's doing a nice job, but actually it really hasn't been that good. And even the games they've won, Central Michigan, Southeast Missouri State, North Texas, and Vanderbilt this year, none of that's really been that good either. They've hung some numbers on it, but they've given up a lot.
North Texas is probably the best of those 4 teams.
You're probably right. You're probably, or maybe Central Michigan.
No.
Okay. One of those teams up there is pretty good. Is it Western? They okay. Eastern? One of them's having a decent year. That's all I know. I think one of them's won 6 games.
The 2 main ones are having a decent year. Maybe it's Central. But you didn't start this as like comparing it to South Carolina. But let it be a cautionary tale, because right now we're sitting here saying, they're largely irrelevant on the national scene at the moment. Missouri is, but when you think Drinkwitz, you think, man, didn't they like pop onto the scene? Wasn't that LSU game, right? And you followed up with a win, right? Aren't things going okay? And then, right, we have less than a 20-game sample, and that sample isn't very good right now. So let it be a cautionary tale for Beamer and the focus theme, really, for these last couple of days of, okay, you won one. How do you follow it up? Like Keith said, we know he's dealt with adversity well. Beamer has. We know he's guided the team through adversity. Can they handle success? Right. So let that be a cautionary tale.
Yeah, I think that there are some similarities, actually. I mean, I think that, okay, well, look at the 4 games that they've won. Look at the 4 games that South Carolina had won. I'd probably give the nod to the Gamecocks. They did go on the road and beat East Carolina. That's better than wins at home against Central Michigan, Southeast Missouri State, and North Texas. And the Troy win's a better win than I think all of those as well. But who was the 4th one? Vanderbilt. And Carolina had to squeak that out on a game-winning drive. So, there are a lot of similarities there. Gamecocks got throttled politely in A&M, and then they come home and they beat Florida after an off week. Missouri got throttled at Georgia, and now they got a home game against who? South Carolina, who's so I mean, I'd say the one difference, I think we all understand this, is Gamecock defense has been way better than Missouri's throughout the season.
Mm-hmm.
So you hope that travels this weekend. But there are actually some similarities this year as to what they have done through a certain number of games, based on who they've beat and how they've done that and this, that, and the other. And the records actually are pretty similar. So to your point, yeah, I think that should be a, hey, pay attention here.
And the number, besides the records, I mean, the inside the numbers, far deeper than that, bears that out too, that the similarities in the seasons. That's why the line is floating between one either way. That's why Vegas, there are lots of different numbers and lots of different simulations are saying, I don't know, 1 point either way, because it has been very similar for both teams.
Yeah, no doubt, man. No doubt about it. I agree. And Eli's beaten South Carolina twice. And like Keith said, yeah, he probably has a little something against the Gamecocks for being passed over. Whatever. I mean, I think there's a lot of coaches out there who get passed over from time to time, but That's just Eli. All right, before we run to our final break, and then we're going to get Mike Morgan in, basically leading up into the end of the program. Shane Beamer is on the podium, so we're going to monitor his comments throughout the day. He has already pointed out Tyler Beatty, who is the tailback for Mizzou. He's pretty good, and that's certainly something that they're going to address throughout the week. But Shane Beamer also went on to say that it's ridiculous that Parker White is not on the Lou Groza Award watch list or finalist list, I should say, when you look at what he's accomplished. And he has that he would hope they would reconsider this, which, by the way, from what I have researched, they actually can do that. They can add somebody to this. I think there's a little bit of a process. His name has to be recommended by a certain number of people, but they can actually go back and add names to the list. I had no idea. So I found that out last night. Apparently you can do that in almost all these lists, depending on the commission that sponsors them.
Well, there's 80 guys on both these lists, so it makes sense you can add a guy later.
Yeah, I mean, well, they've whittled this one. He was on the list, but this has been whittled down to like the top 20 kickers in the country.
Right.
And he's like, wait a second.
It's still a lot. Like, if you missed one, you got 20 on the list. You could throw 21 on there. It's okay.
Probably go back and, nab one. I think that would be smart. But we'll keep our eyes certainly on Shane Beamer, and we'll have our ears on Mike Morgan when we return here on the JB and Goldwater Show, very proudly presented by Motley Rice. Hopefully, you won't ever need legal help for a catastrophic injury or health issues from a medical drug or device. But if you or a loved one suffers injury or loss, Motley Rice LLC is a nationally recognized law firm that is right here in Mount Pleasant at 28 Ridgeside Boulevard. Thank you, Motley Rice, for sponsoring the JB and Goldwater Show and the Big Gamecock Preview Show. Visit motleyrice.com for more. motleyrice.com.
This is Mike Mazzell for Stokes Volkswagen on Ashley Phosphate Road. You know what happens when you sell record numbers of new vehicles? That's right, we take in record numbers of local trades. Despite what the news is saying, quality pre-owned vehicles really aren't that hard to find. You just need to know where to look. Stokes Volkswagen on Ashley Phosphate and on the web at stokesvw.com. We've got over 1,200 pre-owned cars, trucks, SUVs, and all at a fraction of the price when new. Every vehicle has been inspected and reconditioned, many with the balance of factory warranty. Best of all, at Stokes Volkswagen, you don't need the perfect credit to get approved for a quality pre-owned vehicle. And we'll take any trade in any condition, even if you owe thousands more than it's worth. Don't forget, we'll buy your car even if you don't buy a car from us. You're going to love our pre-owned selection, I guarantee it. So come see us today at Stokes Volkswagen on Ashley Phosphate or stokesvw.com.
Peace and love at Stokes VW.
Negative trade equity financed a new loan subject to lender approval.
Wando Power Equipment, the trusted home of Hustler zero-turn residential and commercial mowers. There is nobody more trusted in South Carolina than our friends from Wando Power Equipment. They've been providing elite commercial and residential service for over 30 years. Landscape Services have turned to their selection of Hustler zero-turn mowers like the Raptor. Bigger, stronger, faster, and the most durable Raptor Hustler has ever designed. Located on Daniel Island and online at wandopower.com. Wando Power Equipment, owned by the Price family, the home of Hustler zero-turn mowers, rentals, service, and specializing in family and friendship.
Family vacations, a new car, a new boat, all cost money, but you don't necessarily have to make more to afford any of that if you can save cash that's flying out the window now. iHelp Consulting can help you finally get the kids to Disney World, upgrade the minivan, or drop that new boat in the water next summer. Let Daniel and iHelp Consulting consult with you. No fees, just savings. You pay them a percentage of those savings. Save on essential services, credit card fees, you name it. Let them find it. These folks are incredible. iHelpConsulting.com. How can I help you?
You hear me talk about Dog and Duck all the time, and there's no other place I'm going to watch my college and NFL than the Dog and Duck. They have 3 locations, Bell Hall, Park West, and Clements Ferry Road. They have specials all football season long, like $12 pitchers of their own D2 brew, $5 pints of Sierra Nevada, weekly pick'em sheets with prizes, and the best wings in town, bar none. For all your football, college, and NFL, the Dog and Duck, Clements Ferry Road, Bell Hall, and Park West.
What's up, everybody? This is South Carolina singer-songwriter Patrick Davis, and I might live in Nashville, Tennessee now, but guess what?
Hey, buddy, I'm not paying you to hear your thoughts on life. I'm paying you to sing.
Well, I have a microphone, and you don't.
So you will listen to every damn word I have to say!
You are the worst wedding singer in the world, buddy.
Sir, one more outburst, I will strangle you with my microphone wire. You understand me?
You are listening to my friends JB and Darren on the JB and Goldwater Show.
Let's get it started. Let's get it started in here. Let's get it started
and finished, which we'll finish the afternoon with Mike Morgan, with ESPN, the SEC Network, the ACC Network, Compass Radio. Let's see, CBS, NBC. It doesn't matter. He's everywhere.
JC and Morgan. Don't forget the podcast.
JC and Morgan, JB and Goldwater. Somebody else that you'll see. Teddy Hefner.
We don't claim that. We don't claim Teddy.
See, Teddy, if you're watching, has been doing this since the early 1920s. So he's coming up on 100 years in radio. So that's good.
Well, I'm loyal. So I worked with Teddy 20 years ago when I was just a snot-nosed early 20s year old whippersnapper, and then Kornblut.
Phil.
There was a time where every time I went to SEC Media Days, SEC baseball tournament, I would hitch a ride with Kornblut. So these guys, it's still kind of a nostalgia when I come on with them. And that's what I'm going to be doing 20 years from now when I'm on JB and Goldwater. We're going to be talking about the golden years of 2019, 20, 21, when you guys were just a little engine that could, and then blew up into the gargantuan network that you're going to eventually evolve into.
I appreciate you saying that. Yeah, we're headed that way, huh, Darren?
I have a knack of knowing these things. I have foresight. I just see that happening.
We're shifting that hustler.
I like the vision. I can buy into your vision.
Absolutely.
We're shifting that hustler zero-turn mower into full throttle, baby. One row at a time.
That's right. That's right. That's the way Wando Power Equipment would want it.
So do you when you left Columbia, let me ask you this. I'm not going where you think I'm going. Believe me.
I have no idea where you're going.
I'm going to take a big. I'm going to take a hard right on this hustler zero turn.
Okay.
When you left Columbia for the final time, working in Columbia, doing all the things you were doing there, did you go out like Ed Orgeron did in Tuscaloosa this weekend?
No.
This guy, he was egging him on, man. He was doing what he could.
Man, O's his own. He's his own dude. I'm gonna miss him, to be honest with you.
He'll be back.
I don't know if he'll be back in the SEC. I mean, if he wants, he could be an assistant coach at just about any SEC school, because the guy can recruit. He knows how to coach D-line. He's a great locker room guy. But doing the LSU game, gosh, seems like an eternity ago, week 2, week 3, and sitting down with him. I mean, I've never laughed so much in my life during a coach's meeting. Never. Mm-hmm. He's funny as hell. Mm-hmm. And he knew at that point that the walls could come crumbling in at any time. And a few weeks later they did. But no, I remember, I've probably told this story, and forgive me. My last days in Columbia, it all happened so fast. I went to the Super Bowl. I was hosting an afternoon show, and I had already started doing some ESPN games as a freelancer. I'd already started doing Carolina Panther preseason games, but I was still kind of a rudderless ship. It was kind of like, well, we'll see where the opportunities take me. There were a couple of college jobs that were offered, and I didn't feel it was the right time to move in those particular locales. The older you get, the more particular you are about where you live, not just the job. I'm not going to Cleveland to do anything. No offense to Cleveland. But I was at a Dunkin' Donuts drive-through covering the Super Bowl in Miami, doing Radio Row all week long with Corey Miller. And I got a phone call from the Braves saying, would you be interested in interviewing for this job? And I thought it was a friend playing a practical joke. I didn't even know they had an opening. And so then I drive the Super Bowl's that Sunday night. Monday morning, I didn't fly there. I drove. So Monday morning, I drive for a 5:00 interview with the Braves from Miami to Atlanta. I don't even have a suit. I didn't pack that. This was my radio days. I found the best pair of khakis and a shirt that I bought at a store outside of Atlanta. My interview was at 5. I got there at 4:47. And 2 interviews later, they gave me the job and said they want me to be part of the family, which meant you need to move to Atlanta. I said, with pleasure.
Wow.
And so that's how that all, my exit out of Columbia and my introduction into Atlanta. And less than 12 months after calling my last Gamecock baseball game on radio, I'm sitting in a chair next to Don Sutton at PNC Park in Pittsburgh calling Braves Pirates on the largest network in professional sports on 150 affiliates. That was a surreal moment.
Wow. And now, Mike, I never knew that story, so I'm going to put that in my diary.
Please.
It goes in Mike's diary, not yours.
It's definitely in mine.
It's going in my diary, too. I mean, and now look where you are doing what you're doing. This week, you got 2 hoops games and an NFL game. How many people in the country right now do you know that will call 2 college basketball games on television this week and then call an NFL game on the radio? By the way, Mike has La Tech in Alabama tonight, and then Kentucky on Friday, and then you got to go to San Diego, the left coast.
Los Angeles.
For the Los Angeles. I don't know.
It's okay. I've done it too.
The left coast for the Chargers
right.
and the Vikings.
Yeah. I don't know if there's anybody else doing that, to be honest with you.
Oh,
I don't know. I don't know if I'll be asked to do that again. It just happened to work out that way on the schedule, but it'll be a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to, November. This was the same when I was doing Gamecock stuff. It's a juggling act. You do football and you juggle in basketball, and it's, that the first game for any sport that you haven't done in a while is always the trickiest. So this will be the trickiest for me, just getting back into a basketball flow when all I've been doing is football. And then to do it the way I'm doing it, which is 2 of the best teams in the country, Alabama and then Kentucky back to back. So that's a good baptism by fire. But yeah, I'm jacked. I'm awfully excited about it.
Dude, Bama is good, and they're recruiting at an elite clip, like a Kentucky-style clip right now. Mm-hmm. I mean, Nate Oates is – I think I remember – didn't you and Darren have this conversation in the spring on our show? Like, when he got hired at Alabama, people were like, and now they're like, holy cow, this guy's –
That was the reaction to the hire. If it was an Alabama message board, it was probably, this is the biggest name we can get, some guy from Buffalo.
Right.
And to relate it back to Carolina, as we often do, if Alabama can find magic in a bottle with one hire, then there's no reason Carolina can't at some point get to where Alabama is. Like Alabama, their arena is one of the oldest in the SEC. Yes, they have tradition, but most of it dates back to like Wimp Sanderson and before that. They are a football school, obviously. They have the same amount of talent, give or take, that South Carolina does in the prep scene. But Nate Oates turned out to be a game changer because the guy can flat out coach. And now he can flat out run a program and recruit because he has momentum. And that is so valuable. So, yeah, there's 100 schools that are kicking themselves. They could have had Nate Oates. They could have had him. And he had no ties. I mean, none to the state of Alabama or the Crimson Tide. 0. He grew up in Wisconsin. He coached Romulus High School before being an assistant at Buffalo. And then Hurley turned over the job to him, and the rest is history.
I just pulled up their schedule, and they've got, starting tonight with the game that you'll call, Mike, they got 5 games to get it figured out, because then it's the battle in Seattle with number 1 Gonzaga on December the 4th. Oh, and then after that, they'll host 15th ranked Houston, and 12th. They'll head to 12th ranked Memphis.
Are they calling it the battle in Seattle?
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know.
But the game is.
They've got one of the toughest out of conference schedules in the country.
Oh yeah, no doubt. Those 3 right there. But that game, I don't think it's at. It's not at Gonzaga. It's somewhere in because it's a neutral site game.
Yeah.
Climate Pledge Arena.
I don't know what that is.
I mean, it's
you got me.
Is that where the Seattle Supersonics play?
Well, they don't play there anymore, so
that's what I know.
I don't know. I don't know what that is. I don't know what's
Climate Pledge Arena, 18,100 seated. Yeah, nonetheless, they have a quote unquote neutral site game in Seattle against Gonzaga.
No Antifa allowed in
for whatever that's worth.
Yeah.
Yeah, you bring a bunch of them Bama boys up there, they can get rid of that Antifa stuff pretty quickly.
Yeah,
so they don't put up with a lot of that.
That's true.
In T-Town. All right, Mike, you mentioned the word momentum. I want to get to some playoff stuff and things like that with you, but we got to touch on the Gamecocks with you, Mike. I mean, they've got some momentum. They didn't beat Florida; they beat the crap out of Florida on Saturday night at Williams-Brice Stadium. Perry Orth mentioned yesterday, and I don't know that I disagree with him. I think this is the most complete win they've had in 8 or 9 years. He said back to 2013. He might be right.
I wouldn't argue with that.
Especially against a quality opponent. I know Florida's had a bunch of issues, but Florida can still beat you. And
no
they didn't
no question. And Florida's the more talented team. I mean, there's no question about any of that. This goes back to me. This is one of the many positives about Shane Beamer. Shane knew what he was walking into. He was not naive. Anybody who took this job at Carolina knew they were walking into a situation where they were going to be behind the 8 ball. There's no proven quarterback. There's some deficiencies on both sides of the football, and you're coming off 2 lackluster seasons. So you needed a coach, I think, that not only was good at this, that, and the other, but also had a very positive mentality that was not going to give into negative town, that was going to be able to keep everybody's head high and keep everybody believing. And I think that's a huge strength that Shane Beamer brings to the table. He has done that throughout this year. He has stayed positive. He has found the bright side in every bit of darkness that is 2021 Gamecock football, and has kept everybody's head high. And that might not mean much to somebody on a message board, but to the players in that locker room, I think it's meant a lot. And I think that finally culminated in what you saw on Saturday, which was, as you mentioned, a complete effort on both sides of the football, complete domination of a Florida football team that had to have the win to take away all of the negative spotlight on Dan Mullen and everybody else. And they just got outplayed from start to finish. So it's huge. And I think it is a program changing win, because that is the kind of win you take into recruiting. That is the kind of win you take into the off season, and really sets the table for some positivity going into 2022. I don't think you can overstate any of those things.
You know, Shane's already on the podium today, said, yeah, that was a huge win, but we've already addressed it with our team. Forget about it, because the next question is, what are you going to do with that? Mm-hmm. And we've seen 2 examples the last couple of years, Mike, of this program doing nothing with big wins. It happened in Athens in 2019, and it happened when they beat Auburn last year at Williams-Brice Stadium. Following both of those games, they fell flat, really. Right. And, you know, I don't know, although it should be celebrated and excited and have people excited throughout the week. I think that Carolina fans are also kind of sitting on their hands a little bit, waiting to see what product that's going to run out of the tunnel in Columbia, Missouri on Saturday.
No, that's fair. Look, I get it. And you hit the nail on the head. Those 2 wins the last 2 years under Will almost feel like wasted opportunities. But I do think it's different. You know, those 2 wins were during a time and during a coaching administration that was clearly in peril, and everybody was just, you kind of felt like the end of the rope had been reached. And while it was great to celebrate for 7 days an upset win within the conference, it didn't necessarily feel like this was something that was going to be a program-changing moment. I think this feels more like that. Shane's not going anywhere anytime soon. There is an epidemic in college football with coaches who are on the hot seat firing coordinators in the middle of the season. And perhaps with all the issues they've had before that game on offense, maybe there's a move made there, maybe there's not. But Shane's not going anywhere. And I think if you were to tell me at the beginning of the year that they'd have 5 wins already and a win against Florida in convincing fashion, I would have taken that in a New York second. I think they've already exceeded some expectations. And for some people, they are going to be upset at the world until Carolina wins 11 games 3 years in a row again. And that might be that level of upset to their deathbed, because that might not happen again. A lot of different things had to happen for that to come to fruition. The SEC is different now. The Eastern Division is different now. And Gamecock football went crashing back down to earth. It went back to, what do they say? Water finds its own level. Well, you might say water kind of found its own level with that program, which for 100 years, the norm has not been 11 wins. It's been something different. And for the first 5 years under Steve Spurrier, it was a 500 program. So I thought all along this hire needed to be outside the box, that they needed to really just hit the reset button on a lot of different things. And I think that's where Shane Beamer comes in handy and is the perfect hire. And I still think they might lose to Missouri by 14 points on Saturday. It's not going to take away from what I feel, that the program is headed in the right direction and they've got the right man to lead it.
1:41 Tuesday afternoon. Mike Morgan with everybody joining us here on the JB and Goldwater show. All right, you mentioned something a minute ago. Darren and I Darren brought this up yesterday, and I thought it was an interesting point. We brought this up a lot, but it culminated yesterday with the Florida news into one conversation. Because look, we all, if you follow this South Carolina program closely, which I do, and there's many out there just like me, we all have eyes. We all have at least a half working brain 90% of the time or more. And that can all tell you that offensively this year, it's been more than a train wreck. Like, it's been really, really bad. Mm-hmm. And a lot of the things that have happened with this offense, Mike, have been like really bad. Like, it's a top down thing. I mean, and that's not hard to figure out when you watch it, but that was not the case Saturday. It all clicked. They had an off week. They made a bunch of changes. They figured it out, and they went out there and did what they did. And then we also found out that Florida canned a couple of coaches in the middle of the season. So I'm asking you strictly here from a perception standpoint, how you kind of see it. Like, right now, we all think that there are problems at South Carolina that probably still need to be addressed. We'll see what happens in the last few games of the season. They still got to play the rest of the year out. But that's just it. We think there are problems that still need to be addressed. Everybody has written now Florida off and called them a dumpster fire, and the final stamp in that conversation came with Grantham is out. Hevesi, the OL coach, has been with Mullen for 20 years. He's out. They're firing guys in the middle of the year. It's all falling apart. So it looks like, to this point, Shane has avoided a lot of that this isn't going to work type talk in Columbia by not listening to idiots like myself and others who say publicly, you need to do this and you need to do that. Florida right now, it looks like, oh my God, it's all falling apart in Dan Mullen's hands, because he's now just fired a couple of coaches in the middle of the year. Just compare what Shane didn't do to what Florida now has done, is what I'm getting at.
And you got there. It was a journey. But
I had to be long-winded because Darren and I have already had the conversation, so I wanted to make sure you understood. We've been down this road, but I want people to see, like, there's two different ways to look at literally the same thing right now, based on what's happened.
Yeah. Well, let's go back to first few years of Spurrier. I remember interviewing Van Gorder when he got the coordinator job, the DC job, and then within days he leaves for the Falcons, and then they hire Ellis. How many different offensive coordinators did they roll through? How many different changes on that staff did they go through? The staff that wound up with those 4 great years, that's not the staff that Steve started with. My point is that this happens all the time. Head coach comes in, he's got to hire a staff. And I'm not convinced Mike Bobo was here for the long term anyway, and I'm not sure if that was a great fit, to be honest with you. So I know people are like, oh, I wish we had Mike Bobo. Look at what they're doing at Auburn. Yeah, Bo Nix, 5-star quarterback. Tank Bigsby, highly recruited running back, offensive lineman, wide receivers. Don't tell me Mike Bobo is a genius all of a sudden. He's got players over there. My point is that there's going to be changes on the staff, just like there is everywhere else. You know, that happens. You bring in a new coach, he brings in a staff, especially a first-year head coach. There's a little bit of experimentation there. There's a little bit of trial by error. And so some of that's going to happen, and there's going to be some changes. I don't understand the point of firing any assistant coaches in the middle of the year, to bring it back to your initial point compared to Florida. That is a move that is clearly, let me tell you what happens in a move like that. And I don't have inside information, but I guarantee you, and Florida's not the only one. There's about 5 other schools in the last 7 days that have fired coordinators and assistant coaches in the middle of the season, but have kept their head coaches.
Nebraska just did it.
Nebraska just did it. I think Washington might have done it.
How many did Nebraska actually fire?
4.
4, yeah.
Wow.
4. Absolutely. And then you got other programs like, you know, Michigan, and now Scott Frost, head coach, takes a pay cut in the middle of the season. So
PR, man.
Yeah. So what happens is, like, the same boosters that are at a program like Carolina or at Florida and are at Mississippi State, and they say, this is unacceptable, and I want change, damn it, and I want it now. Well, I think we really ought to keep our head coach right about now. If we fire Dan Mullen, we might hire Jim McElwain and Ron Zook again. So maybe we ought to think twice about, we're Florida, but we can't get whoever we want. We just learned that because Scott Frost and Chip Kelly just said thanks, but no thanks when we hired Dan Mullen. So Scott Strickland, the AD, has to say, calm down. I'm not going to fire Dan. Well, then you better fire somebody. Head's got to roll, or I ain't giving you $50,000 this year. Okay, I'll tell Dan he's got to fire a couple of assistant coaches. You're damn right he does. And what happens? They fire 2 coaches. They were going to fire Grantham at the end of the year anyway. Like this was the most predictable firing on the planet.
Should have fired him last year, Mike.
Probably, and that's to Dan Mullen's own downfall. But truth be told, the defense is actually better this year than it was last year. The real problem in Florida is not the offensive line coach, and to an extent, it's not as much of Grantham as people think it is that you lost Kyle Trask, who is Mac Jones 2.0, who is an NFL quarterback. You lost Kyle Pitts, who is a generational tight end. You lost Kadarius Toney, one of the best playmakers in space in college football. And you replaced him with Emory Jones. And Emory Jones is not a very good SEC quarterback. And you don't have Kyle Pitts. And you don't have a Kadarius Toney. So they are having problems scoring as much as anything else. I would have fired Grantham a while ago, but the bigger issue, and the reason why I never thought Florida was contending for the East this year anyway, I don't know what Florida fans were thinking, is that clearly they were going to take a step back with all those losses. So now Dan Mullen is caught in a situation where they're focusing on his recruiting. People weren't obsessed about the recruiting last year when he had Trask and Pitts and those guys, but now it's an issue. And now Grantham's an even bigger issue, even though the defensive numbers are twice as good as they were last year when they were terrible. So that's how quickly things can change. But again, I'll bring it back to Carolina. The biggest difference to me, play calling was better, et cetera, et cetera. Team came out, pumped up, much different energy than sometimes what we've seen. But they found a quarterback who could make some plays and not beat you. And they really haven't had that for much of this year. I mean, Jason Brown was the story. A kid that played at St. Francis was the story. So, you know, we talk about Clemson. Clemson's got 4- and 5-star kids all over the place. They haven't had good quarterback play. Therefore, they haven't had a good season. Carolina doesn't need great quarterback play, and there's probably not anybody on the roster capable of giving them that. But they could use some good quarterback play, and that's what they got Saturday.
And now they have 3 games that they can win in front of them. I mean, every game left on this schedule is winnable for South Carolina. Every game left on the Gators schedule is winnable, Mike, and they have no business losing to Samford this week. They won't. But then they have to go to Missouri, and they've got Florida State. I mean, all right, so he's now fired those two guys. I'll get to this one a little bit quicker. I got a little excited sooner. He's now fired those two guys, right? Okay, so is he in job-saving mode, or is he safe, or is that TBD? Okay.
I think so. Now, I have a hard time sitting here and saying Dan Mullen should be fired. He's one of the best play callers in the country. He led Florida to 3 straight New Year's Day bowl games. He beat Georgia last year. And I look at his 2 predecessors and I say, ooh, be careful what you wish for. But that's a fan base that doesn't like losing the way they've lost. And Dan is the kind of guy that just doesn't give two you-know-whats about what you think. And therefore, he's not going to be – his bedside manner is not going to be that of what fans want to hear. It's just not. He kind of gives you an attitude like, hey, I don't need to explain this to you. We've lost some games. It ain't all my fault. And if you think you can do better, go ahead and give it a shot. That's just kind of the vibe that Dan gives a lot of people. And so the animus from his own fan base is ratcheted up a few spots. But I just go back to what is the big name out there that first off is going to turn down LSU and Southern Cal, among other jobs, and say, I want to go to Gainesville, where they have fired the last 3 coaches in short order.
I don't know. I mean, is it well, Billy Napier turns down every job, so he's not going anywhere.
It's James Franklin, because he's the leading candidate everywhere.
Well, yeah. Yes, I think James Franklin is the leading candidate for the Utah Jazz at this point.
Yeah, he's diverse like you, Mike.
Yes.
I mean, the Florida job isn't open, so it's not fair to speculate on who the next coach is going to be. But I just out of curiosity, I'm asking both of you, where do you think Jamie Chadwell's name is going to land in a lot of these situations?
I mean, to be honest with you, no knock on Jamie Chadwell or Billy Napier. I don't know if that does much to excite the Florida fan base.
No, I don't. I agree. I don't disagree with that.
Those kind of hires are available every year. The hot mid-major coach, just like it is in basketball. So, I mean, I don't think if you fire Dan Mullen and you bring in Chadwell and or Napier, you can't hire both, or Napier. I don't know if they're having a party in Gainesville over that.
No, not. And you need to rally this fan base if you make a move. That's right. That's part of it. My hunch, like you said, no knock on him. My hunch is that Chadwell needs another step before he's in elite coaching level territory.
Yeah, I again,
fair.
I know a lot of games.
You know what? Let me throw this at you, Mike. And this is, I talked to JC about this off the air the other day.
Sure.
But is there, and I get defensively they haven't been very good, but is there any reason why Dave Clawson's name just can't get in the mix with some of these jobs?
You know, he was the OC at Tennessee in 2008?
Yeah.
I think and I having done 2 Wake Forest games the last 2 years, I have a load of respect for him. And I think he does more with less as much as anybody in the country. But I just think people look at what you recruit and what you do in Winston-Salem is entirely different than a big-time SEC job. And so I think they look at him and they say, it's just not the right fit. Like, he's where he belongs. He's at a developmental program. Developmental programs, just like David Cutcliffe and Duke, they take special type of individuals, but that doesn't translate necessarily into a job like this.
Well, with all that being said, I guess we can figure out I don't know. They're hiring guys in the middle of the season. Georgia Southern just did it. Texas Tech just did it by hiring Joey McGuire. Everybody thinks, well, just fire him and hire him right now. Let him step in and start coaching tomorrow. Regardless of all that, tonight, it is tonight, right? We're going to get another release from the College Football Playoff Committee with their rankings, Mike. We all know who number 1 is. There's no debate there. Do we all? Is 2, 3, and 4 by default? Is it Bama, Oregon, Ohio State by default this week?
But now you asked me this question last week, and what did I tell you? I thought if it was my ballot, Georgia would have been 1, Alabama would have been 2. Now, I didn't think the committee was actually going to have the stones to do that, but they did. I told you Ohio State would be in my top 4, not based on if you're asking me who the 4 best teams are, right?
Yeah.
Not resume. I had Ohio State, not Michigan State. And then I still think Oklahoma has a really good chance of finding their way in this thing if they just keep steady the course, keep beating Big 12 teams, and go undefeated in a Power 5 league. That's what my prediction would be. It's boring, but that's what my prediction would be who the final 4 are. All we're doing now, this is just for fun and games. It's just a TV show. It's like we're not none of this matters. So it's great. Like everybody can argue about Cincinnati. Cincinnati, again, great story, not a great team. And you have game day on your campus and you go out and you struggle to beat Tulsa.
Right.
Come on. So I'm just not going to feel sorry for Cincinnati based on what they've done. And you can't just play the undefeated card, because if that's the case, where's Texas San Antonio? Where was Wake Forest last week? No, I think we're going to go back. It's going to be pretty chalkish again. I wouldn't be surprised if the Pac-12 is left out in the cold. I wouldn't be shocked if Oregon loses a game. And if so, those would be the 4. If not, maybe Oregon does get in. But for those hoping among hope that we're going to have this incredible diversified portfolio of teams in this year's playoff, unlike the insanely predictable first 7 years, I'm not seeing it.
I mean, guys, Oklahoma, they got to go to Baylor this weekend. Then they've got Iowa State, and then they have to go to Oklahoma State. I would say outside of probably Ohio State, does anybody else have anything like that left on their schedule?
No, it's a great point. Ohio State has a gauntlet coming up, and Oklahoma has a gauntlet coming up. There is no gauntlet in the Pac-12, so Oregon, without even looking at their schedule, doesn't have anything that stacks up to that.
No, I agree. Now, Mike,
there are enough flaws with both Ohio State and Oklahoma that it's not without question. It's more likely that both lose a game than both win out.
Very possible.
Okay, so on that note, I know we have 2 minutes left, and we got to run here, but okay, set Georgia aside here. Georgia's Georgia. Who's playing, in your opinion, Mike, the best football in the country right now? I can tell you who mine is, and they've got 2 losses.
Okay, then I'm probably missing where you're going with that, but I'm leaning toward Ohio State.
How about Texas A&M?
Yeah.
Is there anybody defensively who's better than them except for Georgia?
No, they're nasty on defense, and Calzada's got a really good arm, and you got A-Chain, and you got Spiller and Anais Smith. Oh, they're really good. They just got off to a rough start. If we had a 12-team playoff and they got in, nobody want to play them.
Nobody want to play them. And Mike,
they're not getting in.
I got news for people. If Bama takes a loss somewhere else, which they could. They still have to play Auburn, and A&M wins out. They're in the SEC title game against Georgia.
Yeah.
But
you're saying, but if they went out and they beat Georgia,
you got a problem.
Now we're gonna have some fun. Let's play the feud.
You got a problem.
I don't think that's gonna happen for the record, but I'm just saying
that could be a hell of a defensive
scenario.
game. That could be a hell of a defensive game. They can stop Georgia's offense. That defense is good.
It's very good. And Georgia's offense doesn't scare people. It's just a slow burn. They're always playing on a short field because their defense is so salty.
Yeah.
That offense can play, I don't want to say pressure free, but they can not have to worry about the same thing most offenses around the country have to worry about. They don't rely on their offense to win games. That defense wins games.
Great point. All right, Mike, if they want to hear your voice tonight, you've got La Tech and Bama on the SEC
Network, 9 o'clock, and Kentucky Friday night, SEC Network, 7 o'clock. Chargers, Rams at a radio station near you across the country. I had some people texting me that were listening in Greenville.
Oh,
free plug for that station. Greenville, Tampa, Houston, Nashville among the channels that people just gave me the old, hey, I just heard you on the radio. Was that you? Like, yes, that was me.
That is me. Yes.
That was me. So no more Tom Brady this week. I'll get to call Justin Herbert, who
the next Tom Brady.
He's awfully good.
Yeah.
God, I know we don't watch that kid a whole lot on the East Coast, but I studied up some tape on him this week. He's good.
He's good.
I didn't realize how mobile he was.
Yeah.
Like, the arm's always been there, and he's a big kid, but he can run. He can throw out of the pocket. He can run.
There are some folks in Washington griping that they could have taken him and didn't. But hey.
I would be griping at too, especially if I took Dwayne Haskins. What's Dwayne Haskins doing these days?
Ouch!
And we were told that Dwayne Haskins was an outstanding quarterback with an incredible future.
Yeah, and Snyder's great.
Yeah.
So Ohio State quarterbacks, man, it's just it's what you do. You take them. If they're there, you take them. Especially like that old guy. What was his name? Cardell Jones.
No,
he looked like he was 40-something years old. Yeah, something. Mike, you got a busy week. Get your rest and eat your greens, and we'll do it again next Tuesday.
Yeah, look forward to it, guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you, buddy.
All right,
Mike Morgan with everybody. SEC Network tonight. He's got La Tech and Alabama. By the way, if you were planning or hoping to go to North Carolina and the College of Charleston on at the end of next week at TD Arena, it's sold out, so you're not going unless you got a ticket. Congrats to the Cougars. Absolutely should be. Bet you Chad Holbrook will be there and Roy Williams. Guarantee you they will be. It's going to be a neat little do there. All right, thanks to Keith Allsep, Mike Morgan, Darren Goldwater, and all of you. We hope you have a terrific Tuesday afternoon somewhere at the Dog and Duck. There's 3 locations. It's easy to get there. We return tomorrow. Frank Martin joins us tomorrow. So does J.C. Sherbert. Happy basketball opening day. We hope you enjoy that. Can't wait for tomorrow at noon right here on the JB and Goldwater Show, presented by Motley Rice and driven by Stokes Volkswagen.